Hi everyone, welcome to Ep.5 of Sam Gets Schooled, the weekly show where we bring on a guest and talk about a specialist topic. This week I've got my good friend Kate. Hi Kate.
Hi.
So I asked you maybe a couple of weeks ago now to try and come up with a topic, and I think you've managed to come up with one. Do you want to now reveal to me exactly what it is?
Okay, the topic is the Arabic language. Not
Right.
in the sense of, I'm not going to teach you any Arabic,
Right.
but in a kind of conceptual way, the Arabic language.
So the concept of the Arabic language.
Yeah, just interesting things about it, the alphabet, the script,
Yeah.
where it comes from,
Yeah.
why it's important, basically.
Right, okay. Why on earth would you choose that as a subject?
Well, I studied Arabic at uni for 4 years.
Yep.
So obviously I think it's quite important.
Yep.
I think it's just an unusual skill that I have,
Yeah.
much more interesting than my day job. So it's either that or accountancy.
Right,
So
okay.
you
Dropping that in there.
Yeah.
But obviously this is something you've managed to maintain a passion for after university, which I think is a lot more than could be said for some people after leaving uni.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something I chose because I was really interested and thought I would never have another opportunity to learn it. So
Yeah.
I just chose it for the love of it, yeah.
And outside of formally studying it, do you have any other experience with it?
Well, kind of during my degree, I lived in Egypt for 4 months, so
Right.
managed to survive. So I
Yeah,
guess.
good. Congratulations.
But other than that, no, just it's something for the future, something I want to
All right. Well, it's something
become
for the
more
next
of an
half an
expert.
hour.
Yeah.
So in terms of my experience with the Arabic language, it's almost zero apart from probably hearing it occasionally on maybe the news or and I literally can't think of any examples where I've even spoken to anyone who or someone even tried to speak Arabic to me. I don't think I've even been to a country where they speak Arabic formally. So this is going to be a fun one. So
Okay.
as per the topic of the show, I'm going to go away now. I'm going to do my very best to research the concept of Arabic for the next 50 minutes, and then we'll start the show. Okay?
Yeah. Good luck.
All right. So welcome back. Hi, Kate again.
Hi.
So it turns out in 15 minutes you can't actually make a significant dent in Arabic as a concept. But I did manage to dig up a few things, and I might kind of understand why you find it so interesting. It's a very widely spoken language, so therefore it probably has a large impact on society, potentially other languages. What makes Arabic an interesting language to you? I mean, you said that you went to university and you could have learned essentially any language. So why did you pick Arabic?
Tricky. So before I went to uni, I did a sort of a brief course,
Yeah.
and the very first thing we learned was the alphabet,
Right.
and that was the first week of my degree as well. Was go away and learn the alphabet.
Yeah.
So the first thing is that it's written from right to left,
Yeah.
which I'm left-handed,
Right. So that works out.
that really appeals.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm convinced there was always a higher proportion of left-handed people in my classes than the average population.
Oh, I see.
But so I don't know if that's ever been statistically proven.
Yeah.
And it's also very, very mathematical and very patterns based.
Oh, really?
From a grammar perspective, but also from just the alphabet itself and the way you put the letters together.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that it all appeals to my mind in that way.
Yeah, because I know, I mean, when you comes to learning languages, you learn a lot of rules for grammar and for, how, when and where letters do and don't appear. But languages like English have a lot of these rules, but then in a lot of different scenarios, you just ignore them. So the rules aren't actually that helpful. Is Arabic more rigorous than that?
I think it is, yeah, certainly modern standard Arabic, which is what foreigners learn.
Yeah.
There are then many, many different dialects which are a lot less formal,
Right.
where I imagine the grammar gets pushed to one side,
Yeah,
and they just
a bit
use
more
it in a
free
more
form.
practical. Yeah, but actually, from studying languages in general, you learn a lot about English and why we have these weird kind of what seem like irregular rules,
Yeah.
but actually the underlying grammar is quite pattern based again. Quite when foreigners learn English, they learn all these grammatical rules which we just never learn. We do it by instinct.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it makes you much more aware of your own language
Right.
as well.
So what you're saying is that I'm wrong and that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So you said something about modern standard Arabic and the fact that there are lots of different dialects. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Okay. So Arabic in general comes from it's ancient, but there's what's referred to as classical Arabic,
Right.
which is what the Quran is written in.
Yeah. So is it one of the older languages that still survives?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm sure how. Certainly in its kind of, it's more closely connected to its ancient, its classical forms
I
than a
see.
lot.
Yeah.
But so classical Arabic is for the Quran, and so lots of Muslims study Arabic for that purpose,
Yeah.
even if they're not from an Arabic country. And then modern standard Arabic is kind of like BBC English,
Okay.
so quite a high register, and it's used in the media
Right.
and for foreigners learning it because it has all of the rules and the standard pronunciation,
So
that sort of thing.
it's like the modern formal equivalent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But with a much narrower vocab than classical Arabic because
right.
there's words which describe the specific way that water sounds when it's flowing, and things like that.
Yeah,
Words-
which is great and beautiful, but maybe not handy if you want to get by in an Arabic country.
precisely.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the dialects again are different entirely again. So I can speak a bit of Egyptian Arabic, having spent some time there, but it's and that's probably the most widely known because there's so many films and so much music from Egypt.
Right.
But then the Arabic of the Arabian Peninsula, which is like Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Oman, that's the most pure Arabic in a sense, the closest to standard Arabic. But then if you go to the opposite extreme of Morocco and Algeria, it's just not mutually intelligible.
Oh, right.
Arabic speakers can't necessarily understand Moroccan or Algerian Arabic because
even in its written form, not just in kind of an accent when it's a spoken way.
In a spoken way, I'm not sure how they don't all have written forms. I don't know if they
Right. Okay.
put it down in writing, but it's because it's so mixed with Berber and other languages of those countries.
Right.
And it's I think it's mainly pronunciation rather than written.
Right. Okay.
You just don't need to write it down.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned classical Arabic, and that's kind of the origin or what we believe to be the origin, and that it's probably been so well preserved because of the fact that it's the language that the Quran is written in. But other than the fact that people study it so that they can read and understand the Quran, is it otherwise not really used?
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing. There are scholars and Quranic scholars in particular, and also people who academically study Arabic and ancient texts. But yeah, it's not. I even got laughed at for speaking standard Arabic in Egypt.
Oh, right.
They thought I was really formal.
Oh, right.
So yeah, if I'd come out with some classical stuff, it would have been.
Yeah, I imagine. But so I guess what I'm going to use the term a Western equivalent would be kind of like someone who studies Latin.
Yeah.
For the sake of being, it's essentially a language which is not spoken realistically anymore. But if you want to study things, a lot of religious aspects and things like that, Christianity has a lot to do with Latin, and it's studied mainly for that reason.
Yeah, it's a good equivalent.
All right, good. Yeah, I'll chalk one up. You're burning through my notes, actually, really, really quickly. I thought I had quite a good stockpile of things to talk about. But you've already raised like 2 or 3 of them kind of on your own accord.
Okay.
So you said that Egyptian Arabic is probably the most common kind, and that's because it has quite a influence on media. You said films and music and things like that. So do people who know one kind of Arabic probably know other kinds purely because of media, or because how closely related are they is kind of the question I'm asking.
I don't know. I think there's, in the same way that we know Americanisms, I think people must know Egyptian bits of Arabic, and if you've spent time in Australia, you know the certain slang words for things. I think it spreads in that way, and there are influences. I think also because lots of countries were colonized by either Britain or France, they have similar influences from those. So like in Egypt, lots of their vocab to do with mechanics and cars and things is French. Arabic versions of French words. So they're all big mixtures of different influences.
So again, maybe we should talk a little bit about Egypt specifically, since you have some personal kind of experience of that. What's it like as a language to speak every day? Is it quite, because I've heard an example where different languages sound different and kind of feel different and kind of give different natural expressive emotions, different certain amounts of power. And I also know, for example, languages like French compared to English are quite inefficient because they have quite a narrow vocabulary. What's it like to speak Egyptian Arabic every day?
It is definitely more sparing with its vocab. Or maybe that's just because I didn't know many words. But I would say it's not as... I think of Arabic as being quite a beautiful language when it's spoken well, so not by me. It can be, there's some very lovely sounds, whereas Egyptian Arabic, for example, the j sound becomes a g. It all becomes quite hard. So it has a different sort of rhythm to it. It's not as flowing. Well, it's not so much about Egyptian, but the other thing about Arabic in general is that the vowels are very... You don't write down vowels in Arabic. You just write the consonants. So you have to...
So you guess the vowels.
You guess, When you're learning, they write them in sometimes. They're just like kind of like a little comma above or below. And that gives you an idea. But it can change the meaning entirely of what you're reading.
So you've got to be careful.
But so I suppose Egyptian, I learned entirely orally, and it's just very much. It just seemed more straightforward, I think, is the way to put it.
I guess my next question was going to be about how you said it sounds like quite a beautiful language, but as someone who has absolutely no experience with it, whenever I have heard it spoken, it sounds quite guttural. And like there sounds like a lot of noises which come from like the back of the throat, and it kind of a little bit quite broken up and like statico. Whereas like as opposed to, I don't know, the only other languages I could kind of say would be opposite would be something like French, which is quite soft and flowy. What does that make it like to speak?
Well, my question for you is, what are the contexts in which you heard Arabic? Is it kind of little clips on the news where someone's really stressed and talking about being in a war zone? Or is it on like an American TV show where they're the terrorist?
So this is something which I thought we might end up getting onto when you mentioned this, is that admittedly the vast majority of my experiences with the Arabic language come from probably American TV shows and the news. So in terms of your exposure to French is going to be much more varied than that. Of course.
I used to speak French and German, and then at uni I switched to French and Arabic. And I always found Arabic much, much softer, because as well as having the guttural sound, the kind of very throaty sound, they also have... I suppose they're called aspirated sounds. So you have a s sound, but then you have a so as well, where you have to. So you have to use the back, like open up the back of your throat, as opposed to the narrow which also exists, but they have so many sounds which have no equivalent in English.
Yeah.
Whereas French has a couple, but it's still from a similar roots as English.
Yeah. Is it a very hard language to learn simply because of how different it is and that it doesn't share an alphabet?
Yeah, I think you have to be able to. It's hard to learn because you're going right back to basics.
Yeah.
The things that you learned when you were in reception, you're then doing. I did it when I was 18, and the alphabet in particular is a challenge. But
is it quite big or small?
It's bigger than ours. It's 28 letters.
Okay, but not massive.
But they're all consonants.
Oh yeah, like you said.
Yeah. So there are lots of extra ones.
But they're just sounds. There's no kind of written form.
Yeah, no. There's what, the vowels or the
the vowels.
Well, there is a way of writing them when you're writing an Arabic script, which is used for like the Quran, and it changes the grammatical meaning of words. But there are also 3 letters which can be vowels and can be consonants. So there's one which is a W sound, but it can also be an oo or a U type sound,
depending on what you put it next to.
Yep. Where in the word it comes. And the other thing is that you have 28 letters, but they are written slightly differently depending on if they're at the beginning or the end or in the middle of a word.
Okay.
So
you have to be able to recognise them in all their different forms.
Yeah, recognise them and write them. One of my biggest pet hates is when you see people with Arabic tattoos.
Oh no.
And they haven't joined up the letters.
Right. Okay.
They just have the individual letters, which just never happens.
Right. Not realistic at all.
No, it's not like English where you can choose whether you join up your handwriting or not.
It's always joined up.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So if anyone out there is considering getting Arabic tattoos, you can contact Kate, and I'll hand out your phone number at the end.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the culture surrounding Arabic as well.
Okay.
It feels like a very distant language.
Yeah.
So if you take Spanish as a language, lots and lots of countries speak Spanish, but also countries close to England speak Spanish, and therefore it's quite a popular language. Arabic is clearly a very, very popular language, but you don't really hear people learning about it, or at least people that I know.
No, I agree. Or if you do hear about it being spoken in Europe, it's in a negative context.
Yeah.
In areas, whole areas of London where you can no longer hear English spoken, that sort of thing. But I suppose.
Do you think that puts people off, even though it's obviously not true?
I don't know, because to me that's what appealed, that it was so different and that it didn't have the same roots as English or French.
Yeah.
I could have learnt Spanish, but it's very similar to French.
Yeah.
I wanted something that opened up a whole different area of the world.
Yeah.
I don't think that should be an off-putting thing, but maybe makes it less accessible. Yeah. And as I say, I partly chose it because there was no other way that I was going to be able to learn it. You can't teach it to yourself, really.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Okay. Yeah, because it's so extremely different.
Yeah.
You said you formally learn MSA, Modern Standard Arabic, and then you learn Egyptian Arabic through going to Egypt. What parts of the world does knowing Arabic open up realistically?
So you've got quite a lot of North Africa.
Right.
Speaks various dialects, but they'll understand MSA.
Yeah.
And then a huge proportion of the Middle East, certainly in terms of landmass. So the Arab Peninsula is the big bit which comes down beside Egypt and Syria, Lebanon, that area. But not really. You can't visit there at the moment.
Not right yet.
No. But the script is used for other languages as well. So Persian use the Arabic script. That's in Iran.
Okay, so it opens up at least a little bit other languages as well.
It's not an isolated language in the same way that English isn't. It would help with other languages. I mean, I don't speak any Persian.
Yeah, and so I don't want to ask the same question again because I've already asked you what it's like speaking on a day-to-day basis. But do you think the language itself has any impact on the culture around it, or in kind of the way that it's spoken?
It's certainly very. It can be quite overwhelming.
Yeah.
When you're surrounded by it, just because it's so fast. And yeah, I suppose it can sound quite angry even when someone's not angry.
Right,
okay. There were also quite a lot of taxi drivers in Egypt who have this way of just refusing to understand you, even if you know that you're saying something that's correct.
Yeah.
They beckon over someone and say, "What's she saying? What's she saying?"
Right.
And you repeat it to someone else, and then they're like, "She said this."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Why do they do that?
I don't know. I think it just maybe because it's so incongruous that they've got this bunch of English students.
It's more disbelief.
Yeah, a bit of that.
Okay. So do you mind me asking what you did in Egypt for 4 months?
I studied Arabic, so I had lessons in the morning, and then the afternoons just spent all of my student loan.
Yeah, good. Yeah, good plan. So 4 months you spent there during term time?
It was over the summer, so which was in hindsight quite a bad idea.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, so it was a private language school, but there were loads of other people there from all other countries.
Yeah.
And what I always found interesting was that when we were speaking to each other, so our common language should have been Arabic,
Yeah.
but actually we always spoke in English,
Yeah.
which is frustrating.
Yeah, I imagine if you're there to learn Arabic.
Mm.
Yeah, you said that Arabic as well. It's not something you actively pursue at the moment. You've got a career which has got nothing to do with Arabic, and you said that right at the beginning that maybe you were keeping it or saving it, or at least it was something you probably wanted to circle back round to. Do you have what you're going to do with it? I mean, you're an English person and you speak, I have no idea to what degree you speak Arabic, but I imagine you speak it pretty well compared to the vast majority of people who also live in England. What's your plan to do with that? What would you like to do?
I would like to go and live in the Middle East and work for a while. So I established that just speaking languages in itself wasn't employable. Yeah. So I now do finance stuff.
Right, okay.
So if I could get a finance-y type job which used Arabic on a day-to-day basis, that would be perfect.
Right.
And preferably something morally good as well.
Oh yeah, of course.
Maybe like a charity in the Middle East, that kind of thing.
Okay. And then, like you were saying before, in Egypt, a lot of the technical language to do with mechanics is borrowed from French. And I think that I've seen that happen in other languages as well. For example, in Japanese, they kind of quite often steal American or English words and kind of add a bit of kind of Japan flavor to the word for like really modern inventions, because the world's a smaller place now. So, something comes out and everyone suddenly needs a word for this new thing. So people tend to latch onto that word. In terms of finance, do you think you're going to have to learn a financial aspect of Arabic? Is it kind of borrowed from other areas, or is that am I getting ahead of myself?
I think I'm almost certainly going to have to learn a whole new set of vocab, because even coming into the world of finance in England, it's I call it a whole nother language, because you're talking in business jargon and that sort of thing. So words which I probably don't even know in French. I definitely don't know in Arabic.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much influence Arabic would have in. I imagine quite a lot of business can be conducted in English.
Oh, of course, yeah. Well, and you would imagine as well that Arabic would have a full complement of vocabulary to be able to deal with business, because business has been going on a little while now.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I say, they're very good at having very specific words for things. So they'll be able to make the distinctions and have the nuances that they need to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So can you tell me a bit more about the culture that I know this is a difficult question because I was about to ask the culture that surrounds Arabic, and I understand now that Arabic, spans whole vast ranges of different cultures. But if I was thrown in at the deep end, what are some do's and don'ts?
Well, the biggest thing for me being thrown into Egypt was realizing that I just didn't know how to say any of the important things.
Right.
I mean, I could say hello and goodbye, but I couldn't. I didn't know how to find my way around the streets. If I got in a taxi, I had no way of saying go and stop and turn right, turn left, that kind of thing. So key phrases are just something which, when you're learning Arabic, you go straight in at the deep end of really complicated grammatical rules without actually learning important vocab. So I guess that's the biggest distinction between studying it and living it.
I bet. How did you deal with that at the time?
So I think my friends left me like these little flashcards.
Oh, nice.
With all the do's and don'ts of living in Cairo. Like
tell me about those if you don't mind.
Okay. So I think one of them, the big one, was about getting taxis, and so hush shamal, hush yamin, ala tul, that's turn left, turn right, go straight on, and things like get them to put the meter on. Always get them to put the meter on. Don't negotiate until you've been here a while and know how much it should be. That's
good advice for any country, I think.
One of my other favourites was something like it's really scary crossing roads.
Right.
So always wait for an Egyptian person to cross and try and cross with them.
Oh, right. someone more experienced.
Yeah, pretty much. Just and the principle that I soon adopted was that if they were honking their horns, it meant that they'd seen you.
Yeah, well,
so
that's
that was
good.
A good thing.
Yeah.
So you just had to go, like, put blinkers on and just walk.
Yeah. Was that? So I'm kind of imagining like crazy busy roads that you see. Was it pretty like manic in terms of like rules of the roads and things? Do they just not exist?
Yeah. I mean, they have traffic lights and things, but they're very flexible in their usage. And things like, so there was one of the main roads that I crossed every day was a dual carriageway, but there was seldom fewer than 4 lanes of traffic on each side of the road. So it's just flexible, very laid back approach.
Would you want to go back?
Yeah, absolutely, like a shot. But I think I would want to have some reason to be there.
Oh yeah, of course.
It would be a hard place to just go and try and make a life without having a job or a course to do or that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, I think that can be true of a lot of things as well, is that you need to going with a job or a course or some kind of other purpose gives you at least the start of a bit of a life, if you know what I mean. It kind of helps you get friends and start to get to know places. I understand that going somewhere without rhyme or reason, unless it was like a holiday. Would you advise people to go on holiday to Cairo for kind of the cultural experience, or do you think that's not advisable if you don't know what you're doing or if you can't speak the language?
It's tricky because I got so much out of it by doing it in a very independent way, but I think you would find it very hard to cope without being, you can get like these package holiday deals.
Yeah, of course.
So I would hugely recommend it, although at the moment it's not particularly politically secure.
Right.
And if you're going to do it, definitely go to Cairo. Don't go to Sharm el Sheikh or somewhere like that, but you could be anywhere in the world. But yeah, I think in terms of it just opens your eyes to a completely different way of life. I think a different pace of life as well, because if you have no experience of traveling in hot countries or in a Muslim country or things like that, the whole rhythm is different according to that. So,
okay, I'm not sure I really get what you mean by that.
Well, because it's hot, the middle of the day, very little is very little happens.
Oh, I see.
You reach kind of early afternoon and everyone's gone home to have a nap, that sort of thing,
Right.
which is like Spain or somewhere.
Yeah.
Or because it's a Muslim country, there's times of day when you get the call to prayer.
Yeah, of course.
And everyone goes to pray. Not so much in Egypt as in other countries because there's quite a lot of Christians as well, so that mixture. But I was there during Ramadan. That was brilliant, actually. I tried fasting for one day and I couldn't do it.
No.
But everything just stays open till the early hours of the morning because that's when people do their eating and they're celebrating. So yeah.
Okay, so we've been chatting about this for a little while now. So we're for new listeners and for old listeners alike, we're going to try something slightly different for this episode, where Kate's going to probably embarrass me and then ask me to try and explain or guess about what the meaning of something is, or try to explain in as basic term as possible something to do with her subject, which is obviously the concept of Arabic, and then she's going to score me on how well I do afterwards. So we'll see how this goes. Kate, do you have anything in mind?
I do. I'm not sure how well it's going to work though, because it's not too technical, but we haven't spoken so much about the language itself as more generally, but we'll have a go.
I think that was kind of a conscious decision by me to avoid the language directly, but that may come back to bite me now.
So what I want to ask you is, why is Arabic so difficult to translate?
Right, so I'm going to say Arabic is so difficult to translate, well, for two key reasons. So the first reason being that a lot of Arabic language has very specific vocabulary, which when you translate to other languages don't have direct translations of. So you're going to have to use a lot more different words to make the same as one Arabic word. And the other thing is, I'm going to say grammatically, it's because it's missing all of its vowels, and a lot of the words and letters can have multiple meanings depending on the context.
So I think that was a pretty good response. I would agree with everything you said, but I would just add that it's also a question of register. So it's really hard to decide whether something should be in quite elevated language and quite formal, or whether it should be more colloquial, spoken language.
Oh, of course. I'd never even considered that as an issue. I'm afraid we're running out of time, so we're going to have to wrap it up. Thanks for Kate again for coming on the show. It's been really great having you on. Thanks to all our listeners for tuning in, and I hope to hear from you again. Bye.
Bye.
Wow, who knew YouTube had such good royalty-free music? If you fancy coming on the show and talking to me about something you're passionate about for half an hour, you can either contact me directly if you're lucky enough to know me, or you can email samgetsschooled@outlook.com. Thanks a lot, and bye-bye.